I'm Frank, and I'm all about helping business owners and entrepreneurs start and grow their lawn care business. Make sure to subscribe, like, and hit the bell button so you're notified of my future videos. Today I have with me Jason Creel with Alabama Lawn Pros, and he's also well known as Lawn Care Life Online. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Appreciate you having me on, Frank. Good to meet you virtually and looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. So, Jason, I want to dive right in. Tell me a little bit. Tell me first off, how long have you been in business?
I think I started my first lawn business. Some people may have heard this story, but I think I started in 2007. But I'm on my third lawn business, not intentionally. I'm not necessarily building them to sell them and start over, but it was a situation where the first one I was mowing lawns and somebody approached me about buying it after about 5 years or so. So I sold it, but I kept a small portion and renamed that as something else. And then I moved to a new area 2 hours away. So I sold that, and now I'm started what is my third and maybe final lawn business, which is Alabama Lawn Pros in a new area.
Well, that's pretty cool. So you started 2007. So what is that? 14 years in the lawn care business. And like you said, you started in the lawn mowing side of the business. And I'm assuming you were doing kind of maintenance, like, the flower bed cleanout, the mulching, the shrub trimmings. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's what I did for the first two businesses, and then with Alabama Lawn Pros, I was mowing a little bit, but for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been exclusively doing the weed control and fertilization.
Well, that's awesome. So, going back when you were first starting out back in 2007, and let's just look at 2007 and maybe 4 or 5 years into your first business, doing the lawn maintenance, mowing, and so forth. Tell me some of the challenges that you experience as a business owner, and tell me, did you own any other business prior to that?
I did not own any business prior to that. I did start a business in the midst of my lawn business. I tried to start a coupon book fundraising company, which was a big mistake. And it's not necessarily a terrible business. I was not the right person to run that business. So I failed that, and actually kind of recommitted me to the lawn care business and made me realize that there was a lot of positives for the lawn care. But I think for me, I had worked I'm not exaggerating. I probably had about 15 jobs in my 20s that were all pretty much terrible. And after doing that, I realized that I didn't know what to call it at the time. But looking back, I think, I'm just an entrepreneur. I'm just not a fit for that, But anyway, it took me a while to figure that out. So when I started the lawn business, I realized real quick, again, because I had some really bad jobs, and the idea of working for myself and making significantly more money right away than I was used to working for somebody else, it just was very appealing to me. Now, looking back, I think I left a lot of money on the table from just mistakes I made and things like that. But anyway, compared to what I had been doing and working for $10 an hour and oftentimes less than that, lawn business was great. We hit it off right at the very beginning.
Well, that's really cool. So you started the lawn mowing business, and you're going through that journey, and just like any other business owner, you have your ups and downs. And for people that are listening or watching, and wanting to get into the lawn care business, and let's just say that, their journey is kind of similar and they're going to get into the, the mowing aspect or the maintenance side of the business. What can you tell yourself going back after having all this experience now? What are some of the things you would tell yourself or the listeners what you should and shouldn't do, and, how to, get that business going right off the bat?
Yeah, well, I think I have observed, and even now, as I'm not mowing lawns, but I'm observing people who are mowing lawns, and I see what are the ones doing that are successful. And what's crazy to me is sometimes these big companies that I know can afford whatever equipment they want, and they'll have two guys with a box truck or some kind of cab over truck with a trailer on the back or whatever, and they've got literally a 36-inch or 42-inch walk behind mower and two guys. And I'm thinking, I know this company can afford anything they want, and so I think they're on to something in the sense that they've learned what is, I don't know. I see some people go the other extreme and just buy tons of equipment, and I'm thinking, how do you really need all that? And I think when I started my business, I bought a 44-inch. It was a 2003 Hustler Mini Z with a 44-inch deck and 19 horsepower Kawasaki. I guess it's kind of like people remember the first car they ever had. That was the first zero turn I had, and it wasn't the perfect mower for every situation, but it was very versatile, and I found it to be extremely profitable. So I think there's one sense in where you want to survive the first year and go get the mower that you need to get started, but don't feel like you got to have, like I tell people, don't go buy a $10,000 bagging mower because you had one customer ask you about bagging up their leaves. It just doesn't make any sense. So um, get a piece of equipment that fits the type of yards you're targeting, and then I still, to this day, still think small yards are better than big yards, but I understand that different areas, that may have a demand for different. If you live in a rural area with large acreage, then you have to adapt to that. But I mean, I still go with the strategy, whether I'm mowing or weed control and fertilization. I'm going to try to find the neighborhood that's got 500 homes that all have the same looking yard with one little tree in the front, and I'm in and out, because the idea is whether you're doing it solo or whether you're going to expand and get multiple crews going, still efficiency is very important. And so if I can only pick up 5 yards in that neighborhood this year, but my goal over time is I might get 50 yards in that neighborhood. And now I've got an extremely profitable route by getting these neighborhoods and getting a lot of yards in the same neighborhood. And that's hard to do with big rural properties that are spread out.
Yeah, and you hit on a couple great points, and the first one was, kind of just get started, right? Like, don't overthink. Do I need the fancy equipment? And you see somebody that's got the 36-inch or the 52-inch, whatever they have, and they've got the fancy equipment, and that kind of in your mind, if it hinders you as you're starting out. I always tell people, just get started. It doesn't matter. The most important thing is not the type of equipment that you have. Is the most important thing is having customers, right? So if I have this pretty beautiful $10,000 piece of equipment and I don't have any customers, what good is that? And you hit on another great point is knowing your area and knowing what is suitable for what you want to do, right? So, you talk kind of you mentioned a little bit route density. You didn't say the words route density, but you're talking a little bit about route density here. You're talking a little bit about getting those profitable lawns, right? So if you're doing these huge lawns, they might not be as profitable as the smaller lawns, because we're looking at profits as on a margins, right? Profit margin, and not necessarily what you're making on the top line, but really what you're bringing down to the bottom line. So those are really great points. And as you went through your journey, when did you discover at what point did you discover that, route density was such an important part of my business? And, you hear a lot of people talk about that, and I want to kind of get your side of that.
I honestly don't think I figured that out until very recently, and I'm kind of somewhat sad to say that. And I didn't necessarily discuss. I mean, anybody with common sense, can figure out that, hey, if I'm mowing this yard and I get the next door neighbor, that's great. Now I've got 2 yards right beside each other. And I had some experiences like that. I know some people. When I was mowing in my first business, we had about 8 yards on the same street, and there would be like a 3-man crew, and we would park the truck and we'd knock out 8 yards literally in just over an hour. Now they were tiny yards, but that was one of the most profitable stops we would make in the entire route. But the way I said, I kind of backed into it and really confirmed my route density convictions, I guess you would say, is recently I sort of downsized my business again about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I sold some customers and tightened up my route even more. So any customers that were further away or more spread out, I sold them. And so now I can get in my truck in the morning and drive 5 minutes most days, and I'm there all day, like literally 5 minutes. I mean, I'm coming home and eating lunch at my house, and so because I'm everything is just so close, at least probably 80% of my business, and it's more of like convenience and lifestyle and all that is great. But when you also look at it from the bottom line, like you said, it's like you don't realize how much money you spend, especially if you're paying people. If you got employees and all that, I mean, it's just so much money is going out the window, and I think we just kind of ignore that. Not just on gas, but like I said, paying your employees and all the overhead that goes into running a business. So between a tight route and then the small properties, which again I think is important. I'm almost at the point now where I'm not sure I'm even going to take on any big properties unless they're really just price them high. I think, like for instance, in our industry, in the weed control and fertilization, like our prices have gone way up as far as the cost of our materials, like fertilizers, gone significantly up, and of course gas is going up and things like that. Well, if you have a really tight route and smaller properties and a lot of them packed in there, you're able to survive some of those things because your margins are already so good because you're cutting your overhead way back.
Absolutely. And the thing you just said is the fact that you've niched down. It's such a great learning lessons for people that are listening. You've really niched down. The size of the properties that you're willing to take on. The areas that you're willing to, go to. You're not traveling too far. You're not taking on these customers that maybe, it's a huge lawn and the dollar signs are, flashing at you, and they're saying to you, oh my God, I can pick up, $250 per treatment on here, where this other lawn is $50 per treatment. But really, if I pick up 5 at 50, my margins are so much better than picking up this one at 250. And maybe even going one step further, if we're talking, I'm talking specifically like, for lawn treatments. You can apply that for mowing as well, but the pricing might be a little bit different. But also the equipment that you need, right? Like if I'm doing, 1,000 lawns at $50 a pop, and all of a sudden somebody wants me to do this 2, 3, 4 acre lawn, and all of a sudden I got to go get special equipment for that. It just doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, it's hard to do both. I mean, unless you're going to be big, again, you got to kind of think. If I was starting a lawn business, I would come up with a plan, and there's a lot of different ways to be correct. I mean, it doesn't, like you could say I want to only do big properties, and that's fine. You would go buy 60-inch mowers, and but at that point it doesn't make sense for you to take on the garden home and charge them $35. So I'm just telling people what my strategy is with the smaller home. Then again, some of these companies that are making millions of dollars in revenue are mowing big commercial properties, and that's certainly a viable strategy. But it's hard to be out there with one person or two people and say, well, I'm going to do everything, and you end up with that trailer full of mowers and equipment. And I'm thinking, what is your return on investment for that mower? I mean, are you really getting your money's out of it for because you don't have many properties? So to me, it just makes sense. I mean, lawn business is great and it's profitable, and I still think it's a great business and people should be in it all the time. But it's not so profitable that you can just make foolish business decisions and drive 30 minutes across town to mow a $40 yard. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, for me, I do actually have a territory where I'll drive 35 minutes, but once I'm over there, I've got like 80 properties. So I go over there and can make $1,000 to $1,500 in one day, working solo by myself. So I'm like, I'll drive 30 minutes for that. I'm not going to drive 30 minutes because I got 3 yards over there. And it's just, so you got to look and give yourself a realistic evaluation. Is there enough yards over there in that area that I can see myself building at least a full day's route? Because you may not get that full day's route year one, but if it's just 2 or 3 random rural properties way out of the way, I would stay away from it personally.
Absolutely. I mean, those are really good points. Now, going back to the mowing, when you were first starting out, 2007, you're progressing through your business. Tell me when you saw fit, or the numbers told you, hey, I need to hire the next employee. That way we can, somebody starting out, they kind of get an idea of, what's a good strategy for that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't very numbers driven. It was more of I got too many yards. I can't do it anymore. I need to get somebody to help me. And again, looking back, I think I probably had some very unprofitable yards. I know I had some very profitable yards. The first year I was in business, again, coming off of working a lot of bad jobs, I got this neighborhood entranceway that paid me over $1,000 a month, 12 months out of the year. And I could probably get out there and do it myself in like, I don't know, an hour and a half, probably. Anyway, it was very profitable. And then the second year, there was a guy, and I think this makes sense for some people. There was a guy that was going out of business. I don't know what he was doing, but he had some really good properties, a lot of commercial properties, and he was trying to sell all of his equipment. And he said if somebody would buy 2 of his lawnmowers, he would give them the customers. And so I ended up only getting maybe 25 or 30 customers, but it was some really good commercial properties, some really profitable ones. And I bought 2 of his mowers. I think I turned right around and sold one of them. And but that was sort of a booster shot year 2 that got me to the point where at that point I needed to hire somebody, and just getting some, because I made a mistake. Like I said, I saw how he was pricing things. My prices were too low, just to be honest with you, and I just had a lot of random houses, and charging them $35 or $40, and that can be great if you got a bunch of them in the same neighborhood. But anyway, I didn't have a great strategy, and probably was somewhat hindered from working bad jobs. And then for me, it was like, well, if I made a few $100 today, that was way better than what I was used to. So I was okay with that, unfortunately.
So at some point you got that second employee, eventually the third employee, and so forth. What are some of the challenges that you saw that you didn't see as a solo operator now that you have employees?
Yeah, and I'm
That was a
back
big,
solo.
that was a big sigh.
Well, I'm back solo now, so if that gives you a little bit of a hint to, I'm a solo guy, and I've anyway. I'm not anti-employee. I'm not the person to manage the employees. I've figured out. I think I'm a little bit too much of a micromanager, and so it's not a good fit for me. But when I had employees, if I was out there working with them, it was okay. I think that kind of was okay with my micromanaging personality. But like a weed control and fertilization, it's a one-man job. So like literally, you're giving the keys to your truck, and they're off for the day. But to answer your question, I learned a lot from hiring people, and I had some situations where you like hire a friend or somebody like that's not really very good, but they're high character and they're going to show up on time and all that. Well, then you might go the other stream and hire somebody who's got a lot of experience in lawn business and great, but not necessarily as good on the other stuff. They may or may not show up. They, just a lot of issues. We had a situation where stealing from the company and just all kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So I don't know. It's kind of like if you want to get somebody that's got experience and character, you're probably going to have to pay a little bit for it. Or you could try to get somebody that's inexperienced and has character and train them, but that doesn't always work out either. So there was a lot of things to learn, but to me, the biggest thing to learn again is what is the true cost of an employee, and this what happens to so many people. And I'm not saying it hadn't happened to me either. Is that they hire people, and at the end of the year they're doing way more work, but they look and it's like, did they we really make any more money, or maybe we made five or $10,000 more this year, but it wasn't worth it for the amount of headaches I had to put up with. So I don't know. I've got friends that want to hire people, and they have the personality for it, and they're okay with a little bit of the chaos that goes on with employees. And then you got people like me that probably just it's just would rather do it myself. And there's obviously challenges with that too. I mean, if I break my leg, I'm going to be in a rough situation for a little bit. So there's not necessarily a perfect answer.
Absolutely. And what I get out of that from, talking to you for this short period of time, well, a couple of things I get out of it on this employee thing is really figuring out who you are, right? Like and I commend you. I mean, you've really figured out your business model and you're probably going to progress, right? We all progress and we're going to get better as we go along, as we all do. But you've really figured out, the employee side. You want to do the solo. That's what makes you happy. You've really figured out your niche, right? You've really figured out your pricing, and you figured out so many things. It's taken, a few years, just like it takes a lot of years for me, but man, what a gift for the people that are listening, right? What the golden nuggets that you're putting out, what a gift. Because if I had this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you had this knowledge, like, you could talk to yourself, when you were starting out, you could talk to your experienced self, and the amount of time and headaches that, you could save, all the mistakes that we've made, right? Man, what a gift. I really get a lot out of the information that you're giving. I hope the listeners do too. So as you progressed out of, I wouldn't say out of, because, you've found your niche. So there's nothing wrong with, having somebody that's going to want to just do mowing. There's nothing wrong with somebody that's just going to want to do commercial. There's nothing wrong with somebody that's just going to want to do, tree work. But you've, changed your niche, right? You've gone away from the maintenance side of the business, the mowing side of the business, and now you're into the fertilization and weed control aspect of the business. And you're in Alabama. I'm not 100% familiar. I'm in Texas, but I think you guys are probably the same type of lawns, like here. It's Bermuda, St. Augustine, zoysia, and I'm pretty sure Alabama is probably the same. So walk us through, the jump from mowing into the fertilization and weed control part of the business.
Okay, so like I said, I had sold my first business after 5 years, kept a portion of it, and failed at the coupon book business thing, and was doing that, still in the lawn business part time. And then we get ready to move. We're moving basically close to where I grew up, so moving 2 hours away from where we lived previously. So I can't carry my lawn business with me, so I sell off the rest of it. And then I get here, and I had a friend from that I knew from where I lived with my first business, and he had been in the weed control business, and they had a huge company, but he was out of it. They had their company had sold out, and he was now working for a supply company for fertilizer and all that. So I talked to him. I'd kind of lost touch with him, to be honest with you, and I called him up one day. I said, "Hey, I'm moving up toward Birmingham, and I want to start another lawn business up there, but I want to get into the weed control side of it." And I don't know exactly what it was that kind of made me think about that. It wasn't, I didn't know then what I know now, as far as like I find it to be significantly more profitable, and I do enjoy that side of it. But I don't know that I knew that necessarily the money side of it at that point. I think I just wanted to do something different, just to be honest with you, and I always felt a little incomplete on a yard, knowing that I can mow it and make it look good, but I didn't have that knowledge to be able to really make it weed free and thick grass and all that to make it really look good, So I wanted, personally to develop in that way. But then once I started doing it, I moved, have I had 3 kids at the time. Now I have 4, and I had 0 customers, and so I had to kind of get going quickly. And so I was mowing lawns, and ended up picking up about 100 customers my first year. Once I moved up here, but maybe 20 of them mowing lawns, and the rest were the weed control. And I said 2 or 3 years into that, it just became obvious that the weed control was a better fit for me. It was more profitable. It didn't quite wear and tear on you. We tell people mowing sometimes is a young man's game, and weed control, lawn business in general, can wear on you, but the weed control is not quite as bad as the mowing as far as physical wear and tear on your body. So anyway, when I got to doing both of them, I guess probably the money was the biggest thing. I would mow a lawn and then spray the same lawn, and I was spraying it and charging more to spray it than I was mowing it, and the amount of time it was significantly less. So, and then the other thing was it was just not near as many competitors in the weed control because you got a little bit of a barrier to entry to get licensed and all, and there's a lot of knowledge involved. So that was great. And then once I quit mowing, all the guys that were mowing, I got to know them, and they start sending me the weed control customers because they get asked a lot. So I was like, at that point, I'm like, well, I don't need to mow anymore. I got these guys that are giving me the weed control business, and I don't want to be their competitor. So it became a good fit. I just started sending them the mowing customers because I get asked about that all the time, and they get asked about weed control all the time. They start sending them to me, and honestly, that's one of the biggest ways I've grown my business.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good fit, like what you said, as far as being able to, send referrals back and forth when you're doing the fertilization weed control part of the business. And one of the other things, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know here in Texas, a lot of the lawns that when it comes to mowing, sure, you can be a solo operator, right? Doing lawn mowings, but typically, you see, a 2-man or a 3-man truck, where in the chemical side of the business, the fertilization weed control, like you said earlier, that is, a 1-person truck. So it's more suited, if I'm hearing correctly, or if I understand it right, it's more suited for that solo operator. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, if I was going to grow to multiple trucks, it would be maybe somebody ride with you for a few weeks as a training aid. But the idea is you get your own truck and you're off. And I think that's a huge advantage because of how much labor costs and everything. But again, I'm not anti mowing. I think you just have to have a different strategy because mowing solo. I mean, you could do fine mowing solo, but for me, $400 was a pretty good day mowing solo. And some people probably do way more than that. But to me, if I was mowing, I would try to grow it to where I could not be solo. I would want at least a crew with me because just for the simple fact of trying to make enough money. But for weed control, like I said, normal day is like $1,000 of revenue. Now you got your costs of your chemicals and all, and nothing's all profit, but your potential as a solo operator, in my opinion, is significantly more. But I do think whatever you do, whether you're mowing or spraying or whatever, you gotta have some decent pricing structure in there. You got to be a profitable company to be able to hire somebody. And I think that goes back to the point we were talking about earlier. These people will hire 2 or 3 guys, and they look at back and they say, "Well, I'm not really making any more money than I was when I was working solo." And I think that's probably a sign that your company's not as profitable as you thought it was. You're really not. Your prices are not high enough, and you're to justify bringing on an employee. So whether you're solo, you need to charge higher prices because you can only do what you can do solo, Or if you're hiring people, you need to charge higher prices because you can't afford to hire anybody if you're not being a profitable company.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When it comes to pricing, you got to be spot on. You can't afford to leave money on the table. If you're doing the mowing aspect of the business and you're having to hire people, and as you expand and you get more equipment and so on, it's really important that you're pricing everything correctly. It was a pleasure and an honor visiting with you, and I hope we can do this again. Jason?
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Frank.
I will be talking to you soon.
I hope this information was helpful to you. Make sure to subscribe, like, and hit the bell button so you're notified of my future videos. See you next time, Lawn Care Pros.